Elon Musk's Starlink that may soon offer satellite internet in India, and that too at a highly competitive promotional price. Now, offering satellite broadband at just 840 rupees a month, that's under $10, aiming to disrupt broadband market with unlimited data plans. According to a report by the Economic Times, the strategy is geared towards rapid user acquisition in one of the world's largest telecom markets. Now, despite high spectrum and licensing costs, satellite operators are aiming to scale fast by offering affordable services. The long-term goal for Starlink is up to about 10 million users in India. However, Starlink's initial hardware costs range from between 21,000 to 32,000 rupees globally. Now, this could potentially limit adoption. Now, it's a significant investment when compared to India's fiber broadband services, which offer speeds of up to 1 GB per second, lower installation costs, and often include bundled OTT subscriptions as well. Now, on the regulatory front, Starlink recently secured a letter of intent from the Department of Telecommunications, granting it the preliminary go-ahead to begin operations in the country. However, it is still awaiting the final clearance from IN-SPACE, which is the Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center. Now, Starlink's expansion may also face capacity constraints. India is currently covered by only 700 to 800 Starlink satellites at a time. That's just 0.7 to 0.8% of its global satellite network. In contrast, India boasts of over 800,000 telecom towers and nearly 3 million base transceiver stations, giving terrestrial networks a substantial edge. Well, let's try and unpack all of this. We have a very special guest joining us this morning, Kumar Deep. He's a telecom analyst joining us this morning. Kumar Deep, good morning. Wonderful having you back on News9. Unpack all this for us. Where does Starlink stand right now as far as its operations in India are concerned?
Thank you, Kartik, and thank you for having me on the show. Good morning. I think it will take some time for Starlink to find its space within the Indian telecom sector, so as to say. Let me quote what the State Minister, Mr. Pennaswamy, had to say a couple of days ago when he was addressing some of these concerns with regards the Starlink operations in India. And I'm not actually quoting from his, I'm not quoting verbatim, but this is what he had to say. He said that Starlink globally has less than 50 lakh subscribers currently. So even if they start their operations in India, it will be for a very minute segment. He also mentioned that it would be limited to, or the focus is on providing connectivity to underserved areas, preferably in the hilly regions, in the remote areas. But then the question arises that whether there would be affordability in some of these remote areas that the government is looking at. Okay. Secondly, as you rightly pointed out, that besides getting the final sort of a go-ahead from the Indian Space or IN-SOX Association, it has to go back to the regulator TRAI in order to get, because TRAI has to still come out with spectrum pricing for administrative allocation of spectrum. Also, it might suggest a minimum usage charge. There might be a bunch of other charges which TRAI can recommend or is likely to recommend, is what I'm reading from the news reports, primarily for providing satellite or broadband satellite services in urban areas, not so much in remote and underserved areas, but primarily for urban areas, which could make it a difficult proposition. The third piece, which you mentioned very clearly, is with regards the cost of the hardware. It's not just the cost of the services, it's the cost of the hardware, which will determine whether people have an option to shift to this kind of an expensive proposition, or do they plan to stick to their own terrestrial broadband services or the conventional broadband services. The only advantage that Starlink so far has is that it has secured licenses or got the letters of intent for providing mobile broadband services, which the other two players are yet to get. So
Right.
they might have a first mover advantage.
Right, a first mover advantage, like you're saying, this could take time once we get the final spectrum auction process, whether it is going to be an auction or not, and in the case of satellite, the in-space permissions, those are pending. So it could take time, but the signals, as I understand, Kumar Deep, are that sooner or later, Starlink will make an entry into India. Now, of course, given the high installation cost, the high hardware cost, but the low usage cost, also coupled with the fact that it seems that Starlink is only going to target about 10 million users in India. 10 million users is 1 crore Indians. Now, out of a population of 140 crores, just a small target of 1 crore Indians to be targeted by Starlink. Are we looking at ultra-rich, or are we looking at perhaps industry, corporate setups, which could be the default users of Starlink? And eventually, is this price of 850 rupees in any case going to be sustainable with the hardware cost, which could cost as much as 30,000 rupees?
I'm not too sure about the pricing because this is what we are reading from media reports. So
Yeah.
I would in no position to comment whether 850 rupees per month or whatever.
I mean,
900
$10
rupees per
is
month.
what $10 is what we are reading. So today's exchange rate, give or take, about
Yeah.
840, 850 rupees. So I'm saying 850 rupees is in any case the cost that you pay for regular broadband, right? Maybe a little
No,
over, a little
we
under
pay-
that.
we pay-
But then the hardware cost really becomes an impediment.
We pay somewhere around, most of the India would be paying around $5 for getting those fixed line broadband services. And the mobile broadband services, which are available on 4G, which is what most of the India would be, or most of the mobile consumers in India, or most of the consumers, broadband consumers, 650 million or 700 million broadband users in the country, out of which 70% would be on mobile broadband, which is coming through your conventional networks such as the 4G and now increasingly 5G. Even 3G or 3.5G is good enough for downloading a bunch of videos. And India still not is big on gaming. So we don't think that
You're right.
the pricing is something that we need to look
No,
at
I hear
right
you.
now.
I'm just trying to draw the comparison, Kumar Deep, not as much with cellular data, but with broadband, you know, the routers that are installed, the optical fiber networks which come into your houses. Compared to that, $10 seems like fair enough pricing. So the question really is, can we over time expect Starlink to become a formidable third player in India, sort of what we see right now, a duopoly in the telecom space? Can Starlink potentially become a sizable competitor?
Okay, let me get into apple-to-apple comparison.
Yeah.
How much does a router cost in a place like New Delhi or in any place?
So-
I mean, unless you are going for one of those branded ones, you can easily pick up a router for $1,000 or
$1,000,
something.
right?
Yeah, 1100 or
Yeah.
maybe $11 or something.
Right.
Now compare that with the cost of 30,000 or whatever are the media reports say.
Right.
One. And you are able to get your unlimited broadband with a capping at a speed after certain amount of data has been consumed at around 500 rupees, Indian
Right.
rupees, which
Right.
is what, $5 or something at today's prices.
Right.
So that's the kind of a consumption. And India still, I mean, there was a time during COVID when India was, if there were four in the family, then four of them used to have their laptops. But that's not the case with India.
Correct.
That's not the case post-COVID.
Right.
It might still be a one laptop household where one laptop gets shared between various members of the family. So, I mean, pricing is the least of the concerns. The Starlink's value proposition would lie in how they provide connectivity in remote and underserved areas, and
Right.
also in marine spaces. They
Right.
will have huge security implications provided they are able to meet all the regulatory requirements, and the letters of intent have been issued to them based on the security clearances. But I assume that there will be challenges going forward because there are mandatory interception requirements. There are a bunch of security clearances which are required, including if you move the terminal by about 2.5 kilometers or every minute, whichever is earlier, there has to be a mandatory reporting back into some sort of a NOC or some sort of a device so that there is a proper track. Plus
Right.
traceability of the terminals. These are some of the challenges, or these are some of the regulatory challenges which will come into play, which will determine how this new service or this new mobile broadband service moves forward.
All
Again,
right.
coming back to what the Minister of State for Telecom said earlier, that there are around 50 lakh global customers. 50 lakh would be what? 5 million?
5 million.
5 million. 5 million would be the total number of Starlink's customers globally,
Right.
out of which they are planning to target around 1 million, which is 1/5 of that in India. Not a big target for a huge country like India with diverse set of populations, diverse bunch of consumers. It would the real proposition would lie in what does the customer get out of out of this new kind of a service.
All right, Kumar Deep. Well, let's leave it at that for now. Thank you so much for joining us here on the show and putting all this in perspective.